Hey everyone, welcome to Prepare to Go There. My name is Peter Burchfield, and I'm so excited to hang out with you for another Future Friday, helping you lead yourself and stay focused on your future. You know, leadership is a responsibility, it's a gift, it's a privilege. And so we want to put in the work today so that way when we show up ready, and we're ready to give again and again. I'm so grateful for this coaching conversation because I have a great friend and leader, Pastor Trey Dowdy. He's doing an awesome work in Galveston, Texas, leading a church community there called Church of the Living God. And he's really been modeling what a strong leadership journey looks like. He understands these three phases we're going to talk about, and I just want to have an open dialogue with him. And so I'm going to pull him up, and we'll enjoy this conversation. Hey, Pastor Trey, how are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Man, thanks so much for spending a little time with us. We're jumping on to talk about the journey that leaders have to go on, and it's not overnight. It's not a one-time thing. It really is a lifestyle and a commitment. And I just really appreciate the way you've been modeling that by example. Why don't you just introduce yourself? And I know you're a family man, you're a community leader, obviously a Jesus follower, and just kind of share what you're excited about right now and what you've been working on with your team.
Yeah, I'm a pastor at a church in Galveston. My grandfather founded the church, and I came in about 2010. And so it was a lot of challenges, a lot of leadership challenges that came through all of that. I have a beautiful wife, been married 13, let's go 13, maybe 14 years, something like that. Uh, and then 4 children, which is their joy of my life, joy of my life. So, and currently, right now, just we're still in the midst of being a growing church. We found ourselves, like many churches during COVID, the challenge is there, but we grew during COVID, which was pretty amazing. And we've still kind of been on this growth journey and excited about what God's doing in our community. So, yeah, that's us.
Amazing. You know, leadership matters in pretty much every space, whether it's business or the home or in a church community. Leadership is not something that we kind of pass or shift to other people. It's something we all have to take ownership over. And so what I was hoping we could do is just kind of dive into this big idea of pioneering leadership. And I've been on a series through this YouTube channel talking about, let me get my slides going here.
Nice.
But just talking about the need for pioneering leaders. And I'm so grateful for, you know, every emphasis of leadership, you know, the visionary leadership, organizational leadership, servant leadership. Man, that was revolutionary for me and my journey. And then, you know, self-leadership, really just getting practical at the personal level and saying, okay, when no one's looking, am I still leading myself and growing? But now I kind of see this need to talk about pioneering leadership. And it's basically the ability to navigate and create the future of what we do. And, you know, church communities need this, businesses need this, families need this. We're all kind of in limbo, kind of in this disruptive time, not really sure of what's next. And pioneering leaders are the ones that are still willing to step up to the challenge, to step into the vacuums, and to lead well with intentionality and integrity. And so what I was hoping we could do is just go through the three phases that I've identified in a leadership journey, which is, you know, leading yourself, that's self-leadership, leading others, that's servant leadership, and then leading through others, and that's generational leadership. And Pastor Trey, I was just thinking, like, you're like just an amazing, ideal person to bring into this conversation, because not only have you been through all seasons, all three phases, but you're kind of in and out of these three conversations all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to lead yourself every day. You're leading a team, and then you're just because of your story and your context, you've been going through this generational leadership thing as it is already. And so, if you're down, I'd love to just kind of kick it off. And why do you think leadership is so important for us, and maybe even the preparation side of it?
Yeah, I think leadership is valuable. I think everyone on earth is called to be a leader. So not everybody believes that, but I think a foundation of everybody's called to be a leader in some aspect of your life and community. And when you kind of get that understanding, then you'll start to say, okay, if I'm called to be a leader, what do I need to do to be a great leader?
Mm,
Most people have kind of had this idea that great leaders are born, like that you're just going to have these innate abilities, and you may have some talents. But I personally believe great leadership is cultivated. Uh,
mm-hmm.
you're you're putting in the work and the effort towards the gifts and talents God's given you, and in the secret place, in the place you talk about the self leadership, in the place where no one's looking, doing the right thing with the pressure not as great. When you're able to do that when no one's looking, that character development helps you when the pressure builds. Other
Yeah.
people are looking. Am I going to please them? Am I not? Am I going all
Mm,
those questions that come up when you're making decisions as a leader start in that self leadership place, in that character development place. So um, it's crucial. I saw it. The Lord used the military in my life uh, probably for the first decade after high school, and much of what I learned about leadership comes from that. A lot of that experience, and one of the biggest things that they say is, you gotta. They call it servant leadership, but it's this idea that you can't lead until you follow,
mm,
and being a good follower is
so
helping
good.
you because you're starting to understand what are the people that I'm leading going through. I've always reminded of my uncle. He was in the military as well, and this story got passed down to me from my grandfather. He got him some warm socks, electric socks that he could use while he was in Korea, but he decided not to use them because his soldiers didn't have them, and so he would
Wow.
not know when his soldiers' feet are cold if he was using them. And so, the basics of learning how to follow well
Mm-hmm.
help you when the Lord promotes you in your season, so you understand who you're leading, what they're going through, and you're able to make better decisions. Here's another example. So when I was in the military, I was in the finance corps, so we had a good mix of males and females. And with the female soldiers, they were getting pregnant, and so many of them, while they were on pregnancy, I was still kind of military and very hard on them, not thinking too much about it. I'd never had that experience of pregnancy. And so when I say hard on them, I was making sure that they worked the 8 hours a day that they were required, things like that in the finance corps, until my wife got pregnant. And it wasn't until after I was in the military, but my
Mm,
wife got pregnant, and I realized the strain of that. Um, and so just being able to understand the people you're leading, um,
yeah.
sometimes that understanding comes in the secret, in the place when no one else is watching. So
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Man, that's so good. And I think, the kind of leaders that have impacted us, like the saying, we don't remember what they say, but we remember how they made us feel.
Yeah.
And they do model empathy and empowerment in a way that may seem kind of paradoxical at first, but it's because they have that empathy and they know, what we've been experiencing, that they do have the skill sets and the mindsets to empower us. There's a story of a missionary, David Livingston, and his support team back in England were trying to send, some team to meet with him in Africa, and they said, "Please tell us the roads that we can send them on." And he wrote a letter, pretty curt letter back, and he basically said, "If these men that you're, trying to give me, will only come by roads, I don't want them." Um, and I want the people, I want the men that don't need roads. And I feel like that's kind of the moment that we're in. It's like 2022. We've never been here before,
Right.
and it's like we're more dependent on the Lord, but we're also being depended on, to just hold the line, stay steady, get ready for the opportunities and or challenges in the future, and to go on this journey yourself, like you're talking about, being a follower first, being empathetic of those that are around you, and then having that commitment to empower those around you. That's gonna make the future brighter and braver for all of us. I'd love to just kind of ask you to give some encouragement to this first group that are just, they're developing leaders. They don't know what they don't know yet, and all they're hearing is you got to prepare, and it's like prepare to go there, and it's like prepare to go where, we don't even know what the next week looks like, let alone what the next 5 years or whatever it looks like. And so, can you just kind of give encouragement for people who may be tempted to get lax in their preparation, or just kind of procrastinate it? How do you just kind of keep yourself motivated when you don't have teachers that are looking over your shoulder, you don't have people nagging on you or bragging on you? How do you really develop that internal motivation to keep putting in the work?
I've found that spending time with God in an intimate way on a daily basis, what happens in that place is He's going to ask you to do things that make the day fun, and they may seem insignificant, but they'll have kind of just big effects in your future. But I think the biggest effect that people mistake is the character development. That we're all created to be in the image of Christ, and we're growing into that. And that time alone with Him, it develops that in such a way that, because we want the big moments, we want the spotlight, but we don't understand that pressure that comes with the spotlight can crumble you if you're not, if you haven't been developed in the secret moments. I think of like Joseph's life. Joseph went through a lot of challenges, but in each situation where it seemed like he wasn't getting promoted but demoted, he still lived a life of excellence. In each one of those moments, whether it was Potiphar's house, the prison, each one of those moments when he continued to rise to second in command, he never quit on the promises of God. He always was like, okay, God, you still have me. I trust you. And when you're doing that daily, it's building the character in you necessary. Mm-hmm. But I also want to say this, because sometimes I'll see people serve for the promotion. Like, I'm doing this for my next level. And the problem with that mentality is you're really just using each moment for the next level. And so you live this lifestyle of, I just got to get the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And you're missing the opportunities that moment to grow. And one of the things I love about where I'm at today is I enjoy what God's done in me more than what He's done around me. Because it's been a lot of fun. So that's what I would encourage people with. Don't just serve to get a promotion. Don't just serve because I'm waiting for my next big break. Serve to become like Jesus. And when you do that, you'll find that He takes you places you never thought you'd be. So,
man, it's so good. I want to move into this first phase, which is self-leadership. It's leading yourself when no one's looking, and being willing to lead yourself where no one's going. Leading by example, learning that best practice of examining yourself first, not shaming or blaming others, but taking responsibility where you are in the season you're in. Are there any practical areas or skills that you can share for your own self-leadership, things that either you have done or things that you're doing now that help you just stay grounded with this idea of self-leadership?
Uh, Things that have helped me just stay grounded. And I hate to keep going back to that, but it's this time with God.
Mm-hmm.
I say I hate to. I mean, it's been key for me, because what it's done is He's given me ideas that I couldn't have created on my own. I'll give you the
So good.
example. Like, so we have. I know it sounds a little weird, but we have this. I was in prayer. Jesus said, "Take my name, put a circle around it, put it on everything." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." I didn't know it was going to blow up and be something. Like, I didn't know it was going to be a brand. If you want to use kind of worldly language around it, I just didn't know that was going to happen, and it did. And now it's more than, it's not just our church thing. It's a Galveston thing, and I've even seen it off the island. Um, so it became this thing that happened out of prayer. And I say that because what I think some leaders lack is we try to mimic other
Mm,
we think are successes
yeah.
instead of asking the Lord, "What do you have for me? What's my portion?" And why that's important is because, like, when the Lord gave me the Jesus thing and promote my name, just do that. What was actually popular in the church for growth for us during that season, I think it was like 2016, right around there, was "I love my church." So everybody was
Mm-hmm.
running around, "I love my church, I love my church, I love my church." And we came out with, "It's not about our church, it's about Jesus."
Yeah.
And it just resonated with a Christian community that I didn't know it was going to do that. And so innovation is like key to
Mm,
leading. I
yes.
and so innovation takes this, like, let me break everything down to the bare bones. What is necessary? God, where are you leading me? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's also like the Lord told me to get on Facebook when it wasn't, not personally, but for the church. And Galveston's a little behind, so we were a little ahead of the curve. But when he said get on it, they're doing their live broadcast. It was like, and the first thing you could do was you could take a phone and just like shoot it, and that was live, and that was good. And that was all you could do. And then I saw somebody do a multi-camera setup, and I said, "Oh, I want to do that. How do we do that?" And we had looked at multi-camera before, but it was like 20,000 to get started. In our church at that time, that would have crushed our budget. But there was a new product called Sling Studio out, and
Mm.
it allowed us to get on for less than $1,000 in some people's phones. And so then we had a multi-camera setup, and so we're rolling along, and we're trying to do each little step the best we can.
Yes.
And I'm empowering the volunteers. "Hey, I want you to watch this. I want you to watch this. I want you to get this shot, this shot." Now, all these little small things, little by little. If you look back at some of our broadcasts, I think we actually started doing the multi-camera in 2017 into 17. You see some of
Mm-hmm.
those broadcasts, you're like, "Oh, okay, that needs some work," but it just kept improving. And then COVID hit, and
Mm.
when COVID hit, and the president of the United States said nobody can have church, and pretty much everybody agreed to that, at least for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We simply had to push play because we already had
Wow.
a broadcast that was decent. And it just put us in really good position. Now, I did not know that. Like, I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
have planned all that out and looked like a genius. I didn't know that in 2016 when the Lord said, "Hey, I need you to get on Facebook and do this really, really well." And had I just said, "Oh, there's only like 16 people that like that post, or 13 people, nobody's watching this," um, we wouldn't have been in position in 2020. And what I found out through some of our networks, church networks, most churches did not grow in COVID. Yet we found, I think we grew by about 30 to 50%, something like that.
Wow.
So just amazing what God's doing.
Yeah. Praise God, man. And that's so cool that if you had waited until COVID was the reason, you wouldn't have had enough time to go through the learning curve and to make the necessary changes. But
Yes.
because you were willing to do it first, before you really had a reason, you were just going with that prompting that you had, going with that instruction, and that was actually better timed than you could have
Yeah,
foreseen. That's really cool.
it makes me
So
think of Noah. Like, do you build the boat when it's raining, or do you
Come
build
on.
what God tells you to? And
Come
for
on.
20 years, like, I mean, think about it, 120 years. If we're comparing it to Instagram, he's getting like 2 likes, maybe one, right? And it's his family, right? But then there's a moment where
Yeah.
it makes sense. And so that came from that secret place. So,
Hmm.
so important. He'll give you innovative ideas, which I think are necessary for good leaders. So whether in
So
business
good.
or industry. So
Yeah, I see a lot of people, and they're insisting on you got to have that morning hour, your hour of power, all that stuff, and they're kind of doing the mechanics, but they're missing the real miracle that you get to hang out with the creator of
yeah,
everything, and that he cares about you more than you could imagine, and that he is actually, working on you, working in you, working through you. So what do you? I'm very interested. I do get a little geeky, so just kind of steer me if you want to go into something else. But I am interested in that morning time.
yeah,
Is it structured? Is it fluid? Is it always the same time and place? Is it just kind of where you find yourself? Is there something of like a sequence that you have found just kind of works over experience? I mean, kind of take us through that time, and even give any helpful clarifications where people can just miss the point of having some kind of morning routine like that.
yeah. I So what's been powerful for me is just spending time with him. I give a kind of a basic, and then I'm going to take it a little bit on some sidetracks. So basically, getting up, reading the Word, spending some time in worship, singing to Him, and in this place, not out of routine, although it is a routine, out of this place of relationship, just listening to what He's telling me that day. And I may not get anything. I may get goosebumps. I may not. Many times it's not, but I know that from that place, God's done amazing things in my life. So
Mm.
that's kind of typical. Then there'll be times where I'll spend afternoon. I'm a pastor, so I get part of my life is I get to do this for a living. It's just spend time with them. So I'll spend afternoons. I'll spend mornings at the church, just spending time with Him. So in this place, this is not necessarily my study time. It's just more devotional time. So in this place, I'll do a thing that's been really powerful for me called vision casting, and it's where I just dream with God. And what I'll do specifically is I'll pray in the Spirit, and then I'll ask for interpretation, and I'll pray about topics that I think the Lord is leading me in, whether it's the downtown campus, whether it's what program do you want to do at the church, whether how do you want to reach some people at this next community event, what does next year look like for us, God? And so I'll begin to pray in the Spirit, and then I ask for interpretation or understanding of that. And He'll just drop things in my spirit, and I'm like, what? Like, that's so
Hmm.
cool. And then other times I may not get anything, but there's this Mr. Magoo sequence that he's probably a little too old
No,
cartoon.
I know Magoo. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like this silly childlike obedience out of me to where He puts me at the right place at the right time. I'll give you an example. So the Lord put it upon my heart to buy people's groceries, and there was a season in my life where I did it almost. We go to HEB almost every week, if not every other week. I was asking in self checkout, do you want to pay for their groceries or that groceries? Do you want me to go down this line, that line, specifically with the intent, how can I buy somebody's groceries? So I'm doing this. I don't tell them that I'm a pastor. I don't tell them about my church. I'm not. It's unconditional. So I'm not trying to get something out of it. I just want to love the Lord and bless people. So as I'm doing this, there's this one lady I pay for. I don't think anything of it, and I leave. I happen to have my Jesus shirt on, and she asked, who do I think? I just like thank Jesus. Well, about 6 months later, we're trying to get into a middle school, and we're struggling to get in. And so our youth pastor goes to talk to the principal. When she goes to talk to the principal, she's like, "Where did you get that Jesus shirt?" And she said, "Oh yeah, our church hands them out." And she's like, "There was some guy that paid for my groceries with that shirt on." And if you know him, if you have a chance to tell him that really impacted me. and it also opened the door. She said, we got to let you in. So it opened that
Wow.
door for us to get in through this small act of obedience that I wasn't trying to get credit for, because I believe if I do things in secret, I do things without the ulterior motives, the
Mm-hmm.
Lord will work on my behalf when needed.
Yes.
And so that comes out of that place of vision casting, and so your
Mm-hmm.
heart's just in tune with the Spirit all throughout the day, so that you can be obedient. And then I also want to say this, because I think I used to beat myself up if I didn't make it up in the morning, or I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get a good quiet time. And I started looking at my life in seasons. So I'll have
Mm-hmm.
seasons where I'm like on point and life is crazy and I'm like hearing the Lord. Then there's other seasons where it's a dreaming season and he's speaking to me by crazy dreams like almost every night. I'm wanting to get to bed early just because it's amazing. Then there's seasons where it feels like it's a little dry, but he's still there with his grace saying, I got you. We're still on track. So I never condemn myself out of those quiet time seasons when I feel like it's a little dry, knowing that there's coming a season where I'm going to press back in, because he's just my love. He's everything to
Mm-hmm.
me. And then the last thing I would talk about quiet time is add fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Fasting, like it takes it to another level. So if you can add, and I don't mean like cutting out Facebook. I think I tell my church all the time, if you're feeling that, you're supposed to do that anyway. Don't call that fasting. I'm talking about like cutting out food, and
Yeah.
it amps it up. And so when I tell my church this all the time, when your body gets to that hunger pain level, use it just like a woman giving birth uses the transition, the pain time, those transition phases to push out the child. Use those hunger pains to press into his presence. And when you do that, you'll find he'll speak to you either in that moment or it'll be a rewarding later. And man, he's just been so good, so good. So yeah,
I love
that's
it.
kind of my quiet times, and uh, they've been awesome. They've been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so good to, yes, be grateful for the things and the areas that have been fruitful, but to not mistake that for the things that are fruit bearing.
Mm,
And that time with the Lord is the fruit bearing part of our life.
yeah,
And, all that other stuff comes and goes. But for you to really dial in, hey, my self leadership comes down to this moment and this best practice of slowing down, being present, and practicing, like you said, that first follower principle. That's amazing. I don't. I do have two other phases to get to, and I'm just trying to track our time. But if possible, if we could take maybe one rabbit trail, and maybe we can keep this. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but vision casting is so helpful. But what I have found, because I want to learn, and I know there's a lot of young leaders, emerging leaders, and they're just trying to get whatever they can get their hands on. And many times, the things that are very popular out there are the things that are free, because they're just so accessible.
yeah,
And so, I've noticed even with Gen Z and younger kids or whatever, man, they pick up this lingo, and I'm just like, you don't really know what you're saying. And they talk about manifesting. I don't know if you've come across this on, I would imagine it's kind of floating around a little bit everywhere. But can you give us some healthy guardrails? You're talking about vision casting. This is something that's with the Creator.
yeah.
The Lord is speaking to you in that moment, and it's real
Oh,
and it's genuine and authentic. And then other people, they say, well, I'm gonna manifest my ideal future, and I'm gonna like speak out to the universe, and
yeah,
I don't want that to be I don't want to tank this awesome conversation, but I do think it might be a helpful clarification, because so many people, even in the they're trying to do productivity, and then the productivity gurus, they don't realize they have Eastern roots and whatever.
yeah,
And they're saying, yeah, this is what you do. And other people would say, well, you pray and I do this. And we're just trying to give caution and, warn people and tell them, you may not know what you're what you're getting into. Can you kind of give any guardrails on that?
So this may be a little awkward. Manifesting, I think, can work. I don't know if it's because I think the Lord's given us power with our words, and I think even someone not connecting with God can use their words to bring things to pass. The only issue, though, is a lot of people use it for success and worldly success. So when they talk about manifesting, they're talking about worldly success. And the problem with that is, Paul writes, not Paul, Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes. I think he's the writer of it. He writes that you can have everything and it's vain. So there's some disappointments because I think some people think they can just roll manifesting and it'll work. And there's a lot of I don't know about that because there's a lot of people that don't work. What I found is that with vision casting, so I'm spending time with God and he's telling me what to do. He's not telling me everything. And at the end of the day, I enjoy my life with him. So if I'm successful to the world's eyes or not, and to some, I'm just a pastor in a small town with a medium-sized church. It's not something to write home about. But I enjoy going home with him. My family's amazing. And when things are tough, like he's still with me.
Yeah.
A whole lot different than I'm going to do this on my own and I'm going to speak out the success I want in life. If my church was full of a ton of people, but I didn't become love, I've missed the point. And becoming love is everything. That only happens when you're with him. So, because I've heard the manifesting part, and I think it's so, because of our social media, it's so easy to see who's doing really well and want their life instead of the one that God promised you. And I think if you had it all, you would realize how lonely it is, how it's empty.
So helpful. Thank you so much.
I hope I didn't grade anymore.
No, not at all. It's so good. And I love that analysis and just that helpful explanation that, hey, this is a principle. It's, we can see it being modeled in scripture, but you need to go back to the root of it, go back to the motive. And when you're doing something to replace the creator and you're trying to take that role as the creator of your own universe, it's just goofy. We can move on and focus on, okay, what advice would you give your younger self? You're just getting started in this thing 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever years ago. What advice would you tell young Trey?
That's interesting because you had sent me these questions, and that one I had to ponder a bit because part of me, because when I came into pastor, we did not do. I mean, there's church models that work to grow a church, and we didn't do it. And we have adapted some of those models because they're effective and they work. And part of me wishes I had known how church operates in America before I got here to pastor. But as I really kind of dove into the question, I realized I had to go through what I had to go through for the development. And so then when I started to think about that, because we weren't a startup church. I wish we had been, right? That would have made it easier. I was a church that came in, or I was a pastor that came into a church that was on the decline, and had to love members there and figure out how the Lord wanted to expand it. So with all of that in purview, I was thinking, what would I tell myself? And it's be patient. Be patient in the process. You're going to want to do some things that are not timing of the Lord, and just wait on him. And what I found is when I wait on him, when I don't get ahead and I'm patient with it, I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm going to let you, if this is really you, I want it to come to me. Man, he's been so good. So good. Everything has not without challenges, but there's been an ease to it that I don't think would have been there had I not waited. So it's been good. And then one more thing, trust the team around you. Uh,
Yes.
so I came off our Easter. We had our biggest Easter service ever, probably one of the biggest services the church has ever had, even counting some of the special events my grandfather ran. Um, and I
Amazing.
came off that event, and my younger self thought if I just preached good, people would show up.
Mm.
And the self now is saying, God, you put a great team around me so that when people drive into the parking lot, walk through the doors, drop off their kids, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
feel the love of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they get it in a sermon or they get it in the music or the donut that was handed to them, they felt the love of God. And that was what was important. So I just trust the team that God's going to give you, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and walk with them. Be willing to walk with them as a family. You're going to hold them accountable, but uh, you want to walk with them. The Lord gave them. You're supposed to steward over them for a reason. Don't just fire people and hire people. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
really steward over the people that God's given you.
Man, so good. That's a perfect segue into this second phase on the leadership journey, which is servant leadership. So
Yeah.
we're learning the importance of leading ourselves, but now we're putting the team in the mix. And there's some unhealthy examples of team leadership, which is maybe more overpowering and positional, where you just have a title and then that gives you the top seat on the totem pole. And, it's unhealthy and it can kind of fester into some toxic practices. But then we've got this other example. Jesus did it a different way, the better way, right? I come to serve, and so servant leadership has really been transforming not just church communities, but businesses thrive with servant leadership, and families thrive with servant leadership. And so, I guess the first question is, what are some things that y'all have been doing or are doing to cultivate a healthy team culture?
Yeah, I think empowering is probably one of the biggest. Is allowing people to make decisions. Um, it doesn't come without accountability, but empowerment so huge. So when I first got to the church, zero empowerment. I was asked about should we have spoons, these type of spoons or this type of spoons to stir the coffee, and those questions, while important, they are important. Maybe if I empowered leaders, they could make that decision. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as a church, we just begin to empower people. Our volunteer base. In fact, we took out the division. We run a very low staff intentionally, so that people don't, one, because everybody's like, oh, the ideal Christian life is to be on church staff, and it's like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's not what Jesus said. Um, but we'll have this. If you have such a bare bones staff, it gives volunteers like this empowerment to, oh wow, I'm an important valued member
Yes.
here at this church. I need to help make decisions with this and that, and that'll come with good training. So you're helping people realize, hey, what's important? How do we, all the small things to whatever aspect of business you are. So great training, great accountability. So you're going to have these moments where you're talking to them and saying, hey, this was great. This was great. These are things we need to improve. But you're allowing people on the fly to make decisions and saying, I would rather you make a wrong decision in the moment than come to me and try to figure out what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, man, the team can really flourish and their gifts come alive that maybe you didn't have. So probably one of the aspects of this is when we first got to the church, we were singing by CDs, and it was people may watch this later. It was, I want to say, painful. Probably that's not the best word. It was a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, um, so I came in and I said I wanted to live music. We didn't really have the talent there, and the Lord spoke to me in one of my quiet times. Why don't you use your gift? And so I led music for about 7 years, and
Mm.
then that season ended, and the Lord said, "Okay, I'm going to send you people." And He didn't say it like all this, but now looking back, so everything was Mr. Magoo, but I'm going to send you people to start doing the music for you. And when I handed that over, and then required, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And the team just kind of came around them, and the music's been way better. I always tell Denzel, our worship leader, Denzel and Ben, both lead worship at our church. I say the music got so much better when I stepped down. And so if you're able to get hands off as a leader and find the people with great talent that are around you, great character, and he'll send it to you. And maybe they don't have the great talent, but you got to trust the Lord's going to develop them in it. It's amazing. And we've seen that. We've seen people with great talent. We've seen people without the gifts that the Lord put gifts upon them. We always think that they have to have the gift to be great. Solomon wasn't wise when he started. He asked for that. And so, yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing to empower your leaders.
Man, that's so good. I've kind of seen just in my leadership journey, sometimes leaders are not comfortable with empowering their leaders. Obviously, there's a trust thing there, but it's partially because the setup of the team or the setup of the organization is just really messy. And it's kind of like when you ask your grandma the recipe for something and she's just done it so long that she doesn't even remember it. It's just muscle memory, man. She's just grabbing and throwing stuff and stirring stuff, and it's all happening at once. And so to actually sit grandma down and reverse engineer that process is, easier said than done. And I think either there's an embarrassment factor of, maybe it could have been cleaner or it should have been better. And so then they don't want to open that door for, in the name of empowerment, let other people see that, or they just haven't thought about it enough intentionally. And so streamlining just what you do, just simplifying what you do and realizing that this doesn't have to work just because you're the secret sauce. It can also work because you've put in some intentionality and you've actually set someone else up for success as well.
I mean, systems are important, right? So systems are, the Lord spoke to me this statement, and don't take it the wrong way, but you can have a large church with great systems and still not have the Spirit of God there. There's large churches don't. You can have the Spirit of God, but still have a small church because you don't have systems. And so systems are the way to where people get ministered. My grandfather prayed for many years, send me 500 people. Send me 500 people. And the Lord finally came to him and said, if I sent you 500 people, you wouldn't know what to do with them if I sent them to you.
Wow.
And so he would always tell me this story when we had a low Sunday in our first 5 years of ministry. He'd always be like, the Lord's working, and he'd tell me this story. And it finally hit me, stop asking the Lord for more people and ask the Lord for wisdom on how to minister to that many people. And so I began to ask that question. I was like, Lord, okay, show me how to pastor that many people. And I realized where we were at then to where we're at today, I didn't have the right wisdom. I didn't have the systems. I didn't have the people in place. And now we do. Yeah. And so that was just this empowerment that a parking lot attendant feels like they can take a new visitor to the back of the building and they're not going to get yelled at because they're not doing their parking lot duties. They feel that empowered. If you can be hands off as a leader, doesn't mean you're not looking at details, but you're not, when you find something that's out of line, you're looking at the system instead of the person and saying, is this a system issue? Is there something here that they haven't been trained well? Maybe they're just not in the spot. And so, it's just, probably enough.
Yeah, and we can be, more reactive and kind of critique what went wrong, and sometimes it's just kind of lashing out, or be more proactive and say, I'm going to put just as much energy to make it simple, to prepare them, to develop them, and to create something that they can step into. Because a lot of my roles, man, I was so grateful. I had some amazing mentors. My youth pastor really took me under his wing at 12 and just mentored me all the way up to 17. And I didn't even realize, that he was kind of affording for my mistakes. You know, he was cleaning up a lot of stuff, but he didn't squelch my passion, and
Mhm.
so I'm super grateful for that. But how do you? Well, I have two questions. I'm feeling our time here, so I'm trying to pick and choose because I'm enjoying this so much. But my one question is, let's say you do have to hold someone accountable. Are you going to do it right then and there? Are you going to do it immediately after the service? You know, or are you going to wait midweek? Are you going to let it air out? Um,
Yeah,
and it,
all those work. Yeah. Hey, go ahead. Well,
no, I was just curious because
yeah,
we know that we've got to be training people and walking with them and journeying with them, but sometimes you just time just kind of rushes past you, and then you end up repeating the same thing, and I think that almost adds insult to injury, and it just kind of makes it a little more strained.
yeah. Well, if I repeat it, then that's on me. I say that's on me. As far as correcting, uh, I will usually. It depends on the situation. I've found that taking a step back and gathering all the information so important. Usually, my quick judgments are wrong. Is what I found. My quick judgments usually tend to be wrong, and it's best for me to take a step back and say, okay, let me step in their shoes. What was all the information present at the time? And then from that place, make an informed decision about what's the direction we want to go now. But sometimes there's something's going on. It's pretty grave. Let's go ahead and handle this in the moment. Sometimes I need to take a step back and wait. But most of the time, I'm waiting to say, okay, let me take a step back and make a decision. Now, if I just allow it to fester, that's on me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I, I can't complain about that. So,
It's
um,
so good.
good.
Now we're the example that we're using is on the volunteer side. I want to kind of shift to the staff level
Yeah,
of your team. And man, just looking at your leadership team on the website, I was so encouraged and even impressed. I mean, you've got some real depth and experience. These leaders are leaders of leaders. They have experience leading churches themselves, or
yeah.
being in senior roles. How do you create a culture where multiple strong leaders want to work together? I think that's something we would all want to have.
Yeah, having strong leaders work together is a challenge, and we face that challenge at times. Especially when there's disagreements, and we have them. But what I love about our team is they're all servants, and they see
Hmm.
servanthood as very, very important. The Lord gave me my team. Right? Like I didn't. I tried to pick a couple people, they didn't work out. Everybody else that He gave me, and I was like, I'm not sure, Lord, about them. Uh, they've been amazing. They've been amazing,
Yeah.
and they'll have times where you're like, "Whoa, what are we doing here?" But we talk about it and we work through it. They'll have times where I'm like, "Wow, you're really headstrong right now. How can I? What am I missing?" Because I'm a pretty headstrong guy at times too, and so
Hmm.
it sometimes I got to take a step back and say maybe they're seeing it right, and sometimes they take a
Hmm.
step back. So we have this, man, we have this just beautiful submission one to another, and so I inherited quite a bit of leadership, and then the Lord has given me some leadership. In fact, one of you had given me a prophecy during COVID, and we've had a young couple of young leaders come up and been amazing. But again, the Lord He gave me the team, and that's why I kind of said, I was just like, I didn't pick them. I tried to pick some people, and it didn't work. So, um, but
That's super cool.
yeah,
I've noticed something that I'm working on with our leadership community. One of the things that the Lord put on my heart was to kind of create a ministry just for the leaders, because youth need ministry.
yeah,
Many times there's a youth ministry or men's ministry or women's ministry, but where do the leaders go to get ministry and to get the caregiving, the coaching, the community that they need? And so we're just kind of speaking that out by faith. So,
Yeah.
more leaders will come, or more leaders will identify, more people will identify as a leader. And many times when you're trying to host an event, you're pulling on all those people to do the work. And so, they're not able to actually just be front and center and receive. And so that's been really cool to kind of gather, and maybe it's not even in a more kind of event style way. It might just be in somebody's house because it's more low maintenance and more relational to pull that off. But the two kind of legs, I guess, to this is caregiving and coaching, and just trying to be intentional about how are we providing caregiving for our leaders,
Yeah.
and then how are we providing coaching. And it's not in the same setting, because that feels just a little disingenuous. Kind of feels like good cop bad cop in a way, and really just to make intentional moments and find caregivers for the caregivers.
Yeah.
Obviously, leaders do that, but maybe you need to outsource, and maybe you need to find people that can come in. And I just think I'll finish this rant and then we'll go into generational leadership. But I think for 2 years, the caregivers have been needed and depleted.
Yeah.
And we need to be filling our caregivers back up. And many times it's the leaders that are serving on our team. So either people are trying to go back to normal, or they're trying to, create a new normal. But in the meantime, you got a lot of caregivers that have been holding things together, and they need some love too. So that's
good.
that.
Yeah.
Can we take a moment and just finish up this trio, talk about generational leadership?
Yeah. I'm excited. Having a good time.
This is a big one because, you and I have been having experiences with this. My parents planted a church, and then your grandfather planted a church, and absolutely, God's heart is generations.
Amen.
And so I guess the first question is, how have you been learning to steward something that you didn't start?
Yeah. So I actually consider it an honor. So honor being key. Um, I feel like I'm in a relay race. Grandfather, obviously starting the work here in Galveston that I pastor, and so that's always in mind for me. In fact, I had people come to me and say, "You need to change the name of the church so that you're more trendy." I really went against it because I didn't see it as my church. I saw it as something I was being a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And why that helps me is because then I'm looking out and saying, okay, who's the next generation that I'm supposed to be mentoring, so that when it's their turn to lead this banner of Christianity, they'll be ready for it. And so I love generational. It's been challenging at times. Without a doubt, my grandfather was very headstrong. It's what made him very successful as a preacher out on the West End with the tent, and nobody wanted him out here because he was headstrong. That kept him in. But it also that makes it challenging now. While I love our personal relationship's awesome, it makes it challenging when I want to do something and he's like, oh, I'm not sure that's going to work. And of course, he's right a lot of times. Um, so there's this place of honor, and I'm listening and taking advice from him. And sometimes he'll look at things we did. It's like we painted the whole sanctuary black, like not his style at all. And he struggled with it too because the tiles my dad gave him, who passed away. So my dad gave him these tiles that are sentimental to him. I want to
Mm-hmm.
take them all out and paint the sanctuary black, and and but yet now he has this flexibility in him that he says, okay, it was not something I would do, but I can see where the Lord's leading you.
Well,
And since wisdom is justified by your children, and he's seeing the effects of these results,
yeah.
he's saying, okay, it's a different way that I would pastor, but the message is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just honor. We miss honor and submission, and submission is I think John Bevere said this. It's not submission till you actually disagree. Like
Mm,
anybody can submit to something they agree to. We don't know if you're submitting or not because you agree, but when you disagree and submit, and there's been many times that I've disagreed with my grandfather about ministry, but I've learned that when I honored him and I submitted, the Lord's worked it out for my good. And if it was something the Lord wanted to do,
hmm
it would eventually come around. My grandfather would come around through conversations and things like that. So honor's so important. So important.
Yes. Man, so good. The patience, the humility, the honor, leading relationally and not just, positionally, and having just that understanding of stewardship that, it was given and it will be given again. And you just have to steward it really well. So I want to kind of zoom in on this moment where you painted the room black, and any change could feel like a critique,
Yeah.
and so how do you communicate changes? How do you lead change? You've got something big on your heart. You're seeing where this thing can go, but you're trying to just honor what's been done, but and there's just help us, Trey. How do we like lead change, but then also stay kind of, in alignment with generations?
Yeah. That one was because that had been on my heart. We actually had started with a small piece, which was the background black. We started doing camera work. We noticed that black backgrounds worked best in camera work. That's the only reason we started doing it. And we were debating between a black background or what was popular was wood plank, throwing a bunch of wood plank and some candles and stuff. Or Edison light bulbs and stuff like that. That was popular during our time of making change. And so we did the black background. We did it through chalk art. And so we did chalk art on it. And while my people that attended church in the 90s and early 2000s, that was not a style that they were used to.
Mm-hmm.
I sold them on the idea of, hey, there's a couple of reasons we're doing this. One is to get great shots on our live feed for those that are watching. And two, we think this will reach a younger generation. That doesn't necessarily reach a younger generation, I don't think, but we sold them on that idea and they bought it. That's probably too much information. So we're doing this, and then I feel like the Lord's pushing us a little bit more forward, and especially during the season of COVID. We're coming out of 2021. I feel like the Lord's saying, let's go forward a little bit more. And so we start incorporating lights, and I feel like we're going to do the whole sanctuary in black. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking about it, thinking about a lot of the reasons, cost, all that, but also the biggest cost was, are people going to buy into this idea? Because we have a very eclectic church. We have a lot of old people. We have a lot of young people. We have people in between. We got it all, which is pretty amazing. So are they going to buy into this? We're going all black. So again, I went around kind of just selling the idea, but then the Lord spoke to me in a dream about it. When he spoke to me in a dream about it, I had to trust that he was talking to me. And so I went ahead and did it. I remember right after we painted it all black, I walked in that Sunday. I was like, this is crazy dark. Oh, no. Is this going to work? I don't know. And it didn't work for some people. Some people couldn't take the change. We told them that we got a downtown campus that's more traditional that they could go to if that fit. But we lost some people for sure with the change. But what was most important to me was my grandfather. And this is what he said. He said, it's not necessarily a church that I would go to, but I see how this is working. And it, it was one of those changes. We made a lot of changes throughout the years, but trying to get buy-in is important. But then you also have to get to this place. Okay, I'm hearing the Lord. I may not have the buy-in, but and so just trusting Him when you're hearing Him and making that change. So.
Man, it's so good. I'd love to kind of zoom out and just dream with you a little bit, because a lot of generational leadership is realizing that you're doing things for others. You're doing things with other leaders in mind, even, and you're doing things with kind of a larger map in your heart. And how do you kind of lead in the moment, and you're taking on the challenges of the week, but then also just keep space in your heart to dream about what's possible in your city, or further from there.
Great question. So I read a book called Rocket Fuel. It's a secular book, but it's a book about defining roles. And I think churches have kind of gone to this. We went to this. Actually, my uncle, who's a entrepreneur, owns a plumbing company. He told me to read it, and so what we did is me and my wife took on those specific roles, where she became the executive pastor and handled the day-to-day specific things, and I began to just vision and dream and ask the Lord. When we stepped, it doesn't mean I don't do. There's some small day-to-day things that I still do because we're a small church and we keep a pretty tight ship. But what that allowed me to do is just get away and hear the Lord and say, okay, Lord, what are you speaking here? That, and I know not everybody's going to have that moment of division. May not have that luxury. We couldn't put my wife on staff till 2019, I think. So we didn't have that luxury. So before that, I was simply I was spending more time. I'd get up and just spend time with the Lord, and then do my daily routine, and He'd give me vision stuff. So, but I tried to segment some time for vision. Like if you don't have the time for it, I spent quality like this. I'm going to spend these 2 hours just talking to the Lord and asking Him what's next. What can I dream about? Because everything we see in this world, somebody created.
Yes.
Somebody created a car. We think we just take this as life. Somebody created a door. Somebody created roads. Like all these things people thought up and created.
So good.
Our life exists because somebody created it. And so when you really tap into that, but more with the Lord, like, Lord, how are you bringing your kingdom here? What does it look like in my microcosm? You don't have to do something big, but if you just did like in my small world, what can I create? What can I do that's different than somebody else? What specifically? So that vision, going back to vision casting,
It's good. It's really helpful.
It's taking time out. But now because my wife does the executive pastor role, I can step back, create sermons, and talk with the Lord about what's next. Like, where do you want to take us? What program you want to do? And He's been faithful to speak to me. So.
Man, that's so good. I've had to really grow in that because I lean future focused. And so I'm always thinking long, like strategy, man. That's a value for me because I see it. I actually see as in the example of Jesus, He said, I go to prepare a place for you. And so like that's His gift, to work on the future and work on us while we're getting there. And so that's been like a big value for me, but I've had to really tether that to the rest of my team and, the people speaking into me, because you're not going to get there if you don't steward the people on the way there and be present and be grounded. And so I think you're really giving us a lot of hope and a lot of help, that it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it really can be both. Pastor Trey, how are you thinking about the future these days? Are you hopeful? Are you obviously not antsy, but I mean, how do you think about the future of Galveston? How do you think about the future of your church, the church community, and just kind of help us work on that mindset, because so many of us can waste time, overthinking it.
Yeah, we can. And sometimes I do waste time overthinking it. I've put it basically like this. The vision of our church is for you to be like Jesus. Heidi Baker put it like this. She said, love the person in front of you. Like, it's not hard. Take your moment and love the person in front of you. And I've found that But they're spending time with God, and I just go live my life, whether it's at Walmart, whether it's at the church, just everywhere that I go. That if I'm intentional about loving the people around me, the Lord makes everything else work for me. And so that's been a valuable resource, and that's the vision. It's not just my vision; that's the vision that the Lord's given our church. That we would be a community that's loving the person in front of us and being like Jesus. And so, we'll have people that pray for people at Walmart or all sorts of things, just out and about in the community, loving a community. And what I found is, because we really want a culture shift in Galveston, where, especially, even 4 or 5 years ago, it was very much a tourist party island. And we're saying, hey, no, we're going to make a culture shift where people are coming here to experience the presence of God, whether they know it or not. And they're going to experience it because we're out and about loving our community. That vision is alive now, and I feel like it's expanding even more. And it's not just our church specific. It's a Christian Jesus movement within all the churches. We get to hear about. I'm hearing about so many churches, boiled back down to the basics. So how can I be like Jesus? How can I go and reach my community for Jesus? So it's just been awesome.
Man, so good. And I really personally have this sense that there's a big spotlight on Galveston, and the Lord's doing amazing things there. It's been, coming up in many of my conversations with different folks, and I believe Galveston is going to be a space where people find real rest, and they can hear clearly from the Lord, and it's just going to be like an epiphany, hot spot where people are just having those moments, kind of like Jacob, where he woke up and he's like, I didn't even know, this is where God is, and I just pray that would be continuing. And thank you so much for your time, your investment, and just the way you're modeling self-leadership, servant leadership, generational leadership, all at the same time. Obviously, you got an open invitation, jump on the podcast whenever you can. I would encourage anybody tuning in, kind of tracking with us, please go check out the work that Pastor Trey's doing. He and his team are doing an awesome job. And, go listen to the services or go visit, go in person, man. I know they'll take care of you. Pastor Trey, where can people, find you, reach you, or get in touch with your team?
You can, if you're in Galveston, you can come to our church. We're on the West End. Our webpage is colg.org. We'd love to have you. We have services on Sunday, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. at our main campus. And then if you're downtown, you want to come to our downtown campus, that's at 10 a.m. And then we have a Wednesday night service as well.
Did I get that right? colg.org.
You did.
Okay.
So, which is awesome. And that's how you can hook up. If you're down on the island, please come visit. So we'd love to have you.
Amazing. Hey, y'all, we're going to stay focused on the future, one Friday at a time. Know that you're not alone. Other people are cheering you on, and what you're doing matters. So keep it up. Remember, you're going places, but you got to prepare to go there. We'll see you.